Welcome to Doctrine and Devotion, a podcast that explores Christian faith and practice from a Reformed Baptist perspective. My name is Joe Thorne. I'm the lead pastor of Redeemer Fellowship in St. Charles, Illinois.
And I'm Jimmy Fowler, executive pastor at Redeemer Fellowship.
Gotta say, good job today in the meeting that we had.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
A lot packed into that hour.
Yep, and here we go.
No.
Yeah. No, you're doing the sandwich. You're going to start off with something good.
No, it's all good.
Then you're going to
I
hit
have
me
nothing
bad.
but compliments.
And then, good again.
Nothing but compliments.
All right, go ahead then.
The other thing I was going to say is, you know I like it when your hair is long, and I love the extensions. That length right there with the extensions, perfect. Don't change a thing. Love it.
Why are you lying? I don't have extensions.
It's not a big deal.
Why?
I don't know why you get all defensive about it.
Because you don't listen.
You listen to me.
No. Because now what's going to happen is,
okay,
homeboy that you really like is going to go on Twitter.
I don't know who that is.
The guy that says men shouldn't have long hair to begin with.
Oh, Owen.
Thank you. And now he's going to be like, and here's a guy with extensions.
Yeah.
It's an abomination. I don't have extensions.
Okay, listen, you're turning 40 next month.
Yes.
Okay, so it's understandable. Your hair is graying, it's thinning, and it's a normal thing.
First of all, it's not thinning.
It's graying and thinning. It's okay.
Graying.
Yeah,
it's not thinning.
Not with the extensions in. It's fine. It looks good. I'm trying to say, I like it. Good for you for taking control of your image. And
what's wrong with you?
It's a good length. You cut it too short, you get like the bob. You look like a Mexican Dutch boy. I don't like it.
Oh
when
my
you cut
gosh,
it.
you can't say that.
That's what you look like. You're a Dutch boy haircut, but Mexican.
But I'm not Mexican.
No, but you look Mexican. Don't you?
No.
Okay, I'm sorry. Do you look Mexican to white people?
Well, just because you're ignorant.
No. Do white people think that you're Mexican?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much.
In Canada, they think I'm First Nations.
You do adapt. You are a chameleon.
In Hawaii, they gave me like resident discounts.
No, yeah, you're an ethnic chameleon. You can pass for everything but white.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah. In Canada, because they get you can get gas at certain spots where like near the reserves, and they get like.
You mean reservations or reserve?
The reserves.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the reserve? Where the gas is, or is a reserve like?
Oh, sorry, like we're First Nations, like their community.
Okay, so we call them reservations here.
Yeah,
they call them reserves there. Got it.
And there, then they would sit there and be like, "Oh, give me your status card." And I'm like, "Oh no, I don't have status." And they would just assume, "Oh, you forgot your card, and here's tax-free gas."
Nice. So you're stealing from the indigenous people. Way
No.
to go. Yes, you did.
I did
not.
not.
You took somebody's spot.
Well, you took their land. What do you want?
Yeah, somebody had to do it.
Somebody?
First, I didn't take any Canadian land.
Just First Nations.
I didn't.
Here?
Yeah, well, that's different. That's a totally different thing.
I feel like this banter derailed.
Okay, it did. Listen, we have a guest. We have a guest on the podcast.
Who probably doesn't want to be on this podcast now that this all just transpired.
Well, we'll see if she's still there. Olivia, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Olivia Meade, we're so excited to have you and talk about your new book, Ordinary Faithfulness, How Your Ordinary Life Reflects an Extraordinary God. Thanks for being on.
Yeah, thank you. I'm bummed I can't see you guys after that exchange. I don't have a visual. So.
Yeah, you probably don't need one. You really don't. But if you Google search my name, many of the pictures are Jimmy. In fact, somebody sent me a screenshot of Google. They typed in Joe Thorne, and your picture comes up because your identity doesn't exist without me, Jimmy. That's what Google shows.
All right. See, it's probably true. Actually, like my online presence has been curated to you.
So, Olivia you were born and raised in West Virginia, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Would you say that you are an Appalachian girl?
Yes, I would say that I'm an Appalachian girl.
Yeah, well, that shows you how ignorant I am. Appalachian girl. Okay.
Yeah, nice try.
Okay, so now you were born there, raised there, and you got your master's degree in business admin, right?
Yes, I do.
Now, what did you do with that? You worked like in nonprofits or something, I think.
Yeah, so I spent quite a few years working for a local nonprofit here in the town that I live in, Huntington, working primarily with vulnerable women and children as it relates to the opioid crisis. So I spent a lot of really good years doing nonprofit work that was really, beneficial, like to the community, but then also just such a learning experience for me, not just with my like business background, but just in life, seeing all the things that I saw and was able to work with a lot of the women. So it was really an incredible experience working in that environment.
Awesome. And you're married to Matt. You got a couple of daughters, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Married to Matt, 2 little girls. 3.5 and 1.5. So
Living the
very
dream.
busy
Living
over
the
here.
dream.
Yeah.
So I noticed that one is named after a cartoon character and one is named after a bird. Is that right?
I mean, I guess you could say that.
Daphne and Wren?
So, yes, Daphne and Wren. So, Daphne was not named after the cartoon character,
Really?
but there is a character that carries the name.
Okay, all right. And Wren, I love that. I don't think I've met anybody named Wren.
Oh, well, yeah, we love it too.
That's very cool. So why don't you tell us a little bit about why you wrote this book? I mean, lots of people write books that, because they want to make money, and then they realize, you don't make money writing books unless you're Francis Chan or somebody like that.
Right.
But people have different motives and reasons. Why did you write this thing?
Yeah, so I think initially it came from, the content and the things that I wrote about are things that I needed to hear for myself. And I needed to learn in my own life, things that I've either experienced in the past or that I'm currently experiencing and trying to grow through. So initially that's where like the content and the things I wanted to write about, that's what drove that. And then the reason to write it, to publish it, to put it out there was really just to primarily edify our church, the women of our church in particular, who I am just so passionate about serving. And so, I just wanted to reach them in a way that would be beneficial. And then also, maybe go out to a little bit more of a broader audience in order to do so as well. But, the goal for me, of course, is never, I never anticipated like, hey, this is going to be a full-time gig. I'm going to make a bunch of money on writing a book. I never had that goal. And I think that it's clearly probably not going to happen. But I'm super excited for the people who are reading it because it's very vulnerable to put, I don't know about you guys, like if you feel this way, but to put a lot of your, not even just personal stories, but just your writing or your, whatever it is that you're putting out there, a podcast or anything it is, it's vulnerable to put that out there. And it's good and helpful. And I've prayed through it to know that like, this is something that I hope can encourage people. But it's hard too. So, a little bit of that, like second guessing things has been hard. But also hearing people who've read the book and been encouraged by it is just such a blessing to me. And that's really the goal for me in putting it out there.
And, you write in the book, and I think, it's really helpful for others that are considering, and they should pick up this book. You write, the book is designed to walk through three main themes: worship, discipleship, and mission. And you write, we often talk of these things in the context of the church service and setting, but I want to explore how they are found in the everyday moments of life. Yeah. And I love that. I love the direction of like this practical theology. How is my doctrine and what I believe impacting and influencing and actually being carried out in everyday context?
Yeah. So, I think what I found with a lot of just the people that, that I'm friends with, that we go to church with, and who are really in our direct line of influence, I guess you could say here, is, the deep theological, application type things are important and necessary, but it's not accessible to everyone. And I don't think it has to be in a way. I think that we should all kind of seek that growth, but how we apply it to like what's happening in our everyday lives, I think is just essential for us as Christians.
One of the things that I appreciated about the book, and there are a lot because we do recommend the book, only to women though, because men can't read books written by women. That's I've learned that on Twitter.
Oh well, yeah. Well, Piper.
Only the two of you.
Yeah, Pope Piper has said we're not. Poper. Yeah. The Poper has said no. Yeah.
So can't be a cop, can't write books for men. What I like is that there tends to be and I think in our estimation, the two traps, right, that people fall into, and one is they sort of default to the local church for everything, right? The whole of their spiritual life is in the assembly. It's on Sunday morning, or it's in their Sunday school or their small group or their formal ministry, and all of it's there. and much of it is supposed to be there, but all of it can't be there. And then the other is like a lot of people that are either deconverting or deconstructing or whatever, or maybe they've just been hurt. And so they distance themselves from the local church and they think, I don't need the local church.
Yeah.
All I need is me and Jesus. And in your book, you're emphasizing the need for our faith to be reflected in the ordinary aspects of life, but you clearly show the value of the local church. You're just trying to show, as far as I've read your book, you're trying to show like, listen, the church is important, it's great, but if it doesn't go beyond those particular gatherings and assembly, and if your faith isn't being worked out in terms of, worship, discipleship, and mission in your everyday life, then you're missing out on really the bulk of what the life of faith is supposed to be.
Yeah. I think too, we find this, this disconnect between the hour and a half to 2 hours that we spend together on Sunday mornings every week and then the rest of our days, the rest of our week. So if we are, gathering together as a church in worship, what does that look like for us? Like when we hear the word worship, many of us are going to immediately think of our time spent together on Sunday mornings or whatever it may be, singing some songs, maybe raising a hand here and there, reciting some things together. And that's wonderful. That's how we should spend our time in our assembly together. But, what I really try to go off of is like, well, what can I find in scripture that is informing my view of worship? So not just my worship or worship as it pertains to singing the songs together or gathering together, but it has to have a further implication, right? Like our lives are not just that hour and a half on Sundays. We have so much more time that we spend with other people and even with other Christians or non-Christians. How does worship influence that? And so, in looking particularly, I've tried to focus on Romans 12 and in 12:1, Paul writes that we're to present our bodies as a living sacrifice. And then that living sacrifice is our spiritual worship. So our worship, together as corporately as the church, that is focused in a way on sacrifice. So the sacrifice of Jesus. But in our lives, as we're walking in worship on a Monday or a random Tuesday, that's focused a bit on sacrifice as well. Because if we're chasing our comfort, and I can speak, for me in particular, if I'm chasing what's going to make me comfortable and without any sacrifice, without any challenge, then I'm probably not walking in worship to the Lord. I'm more so walking in worship to myself and my own comfort. And so that was a lesson I had to learn, for myself. And it really informed the way that I see worship just on a broad scale in general.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that, because one of the most important words in your book is the word ordinary. Now, in the Reformed tradition, that is an important word. We talk about the ordinary means of grace. We talk about the ordinary Christian life. Now, there are, and I'm not trying to call people out, but guys like David Platt and Francis Chan have sort of, worked at making the charge that you're not supposed to live an ordinary life. You're supposed to live a dramatic, intense life, an extreme life. And there's a sense in which the ordinary life of faith is extreme, in that it's lived for the glory of God, in that we submit ourselves to His rule, not the rules of the world. But we believe in the ordinary means of grace and the value of living out our vocation simply as followers of Christ. And so you talk about ordinary worship and ordinary discipleship and ordinary mission. Can you just put a finer point maybe on like this aspect of worship? And you've been talking about that. Formal worship versus ordinary worship. What do you mean by ordinary worship?
Yeah, so ordinary worship is, primarily found in the moments of our days that are either unwarranted, mundane, unseen. I think for me, I found it most in just serving my kids. Like that's the season that I'm in. I'm a mom of two little who require a lot from me, like both mentally and physically. They're very needy, those little girls of mine. So I found that for me, the ordinary worship that I display in my life is centered on the way that on a Monday morning, I get up, I make them breakfast, I attend to their needs. We do, whatever it is we need to do, go where we need to go. I'm spending a lot of my day focused on them, which is a sacrifice in a way for me because I'm not doing the things that I used to do or that I want to do or that even good things. So, my time spent reading my Bible, I'm not doing that 2 hours a day because that's just not, that's, right. I can't do that every day. So even good things, like good things that I might want to do or seek to do or used to do, I am not always able to do. And so how can I, in worship, how am I reframing that? That sacrifice is not being a hindrance, but being something that actually catalyzes glorifying God. So how can I glorify God when I'm making breakfast for the upkeep time on a Monday morning when I'd really rather be doing X, Y, Z? How do I glorify God in that? Well, it's focusing on there are people that have been placed in my life who I have the opportunity to serve. And in my service to them, in my sacrifice in a way, I'm able to worship the Lord and not just thank Him for the people that He's given me or the things, the quote unquote blessings that I may have walking around in my life. But really I'm able to die a little to myself in order to serve others. And I think if we can find ways to do that, and it doesn't, my example is for my kids because that's who I'm around all day, but your example could be your work. It could be your neighbors. I have a friend who's caring for her elderly grandparents, and it's taking a lot of time and it's taken her away from a lot of things that she has loved and is passionate about doing, but she's caring for her elderly grandparents because she has to do that. And so in that is her spiritual worship on a Wednesday night when she'd rather be going to this, hanging out with friends or maybe going out to dinner with someone. She's going to put her grandparents to bed. And that's our worship. That is how we can and do glorify God and being faithful to these opportunities to die a little to ourselves and to serve somebody else.
And what I love about, like, when you talk about like this beauty in the ordinary, right? I mean, I think of immediately as we're talking, I'm thinking of, I love The Office. Sorry.
Come on. Every episode, bro.
Listen, season finale, right? Pam Beasley, like, really kind of help her at that point. She kind of hits and summarizes The Office itself, right? Like, how is it that you came to this paper company and you filmed us and you created, like, you showed all the best, right? Yeah. And she's like, there's the iconic line of, there's a lot of beauty in ordinary things. Isn't that the point? And I think really what you're hitting on here is these things that we sometimes cast aside as mundane. There is a beautiful aspect of worship in the midst of that in a lifelong disciple.
Let me just say, that is the best Office reference you've ever made.
First of all, it's not. I've had a lot of great ones.
No. I'm not saying the other ones are bad, though they are. That's a really good one. That was it. I'm giving you props. Do I ever give you props for Office references?
Never.
Here I'm saying that's really good.
Never.
Really good.
At any conference I've been at. Any conference, any sermon.
Okay. Oh, I just gave you props on your sermons. Everything, man. Everything looks good, man. Your notes look good.
Oh, well, thanks.
So what are some things that you find in your life and as you're ministering to other people, what are some things that hinder us from ordinary worship? I feel like diagnosing what hinders us from corporate worship is easier because, there's easy distractions. Whatever, busyness of the day. And by the way, I love how you talked about preparing for corporate. You have a section in there of preparing for corporate worship and how you used to think about it and how you started to think about it. Maybe we could talk about that in a minute because I thought that was really good. But in terms of ordinary worship, what are some things that you think hinder us from engaging in worship in the ordinary every day?
I think often we don't recognize, the things that we're doing as an opportunity to worship. So when we see our lives as just like a checklist, and I love a good checklist, so I'm not hating on checklists. But when we see our days as, this is what I have to do today, and then tomorrow, and then the next day, and I'm going to work, check, I'm making dinner, check, I've got to take this to the post office, check, whatever it may be. Those super ordinary, regular things that we're doing, there's little opportunities in there to redeem that, and, even to redeem the time around that. So I think first, we don't recognize the opportunity that we already have in the things that we're already doing. I don't have to block out the 2 hours of, in my day to read my Bible that's like, I would love to be able to do that every single day. But if I don't have that, I still have an opportunity to spend time with the Lord.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't have to be 2 hours of quiet time from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. or whatever, you know, the prescription is out there that is like, this is how you do it. No, I can still spend time with the Lord as I'm driving to, you know, Bible study on a Wednesday night, whatever it might be. So I think recognizing that for one, and then, excuse me, for two, I think often, and, you know, I'll speak for myself because it's something that I kind of touched on, but I've had to learn for myself is this idea of chasing my own comfort rather than maybe walking in the hard things of sacrificing part of my life. So would I rather spend my day doing something else, or would I rather focus my attention on something that is going to bring me comfort or bring me happiness or make me feel good or whatever it might be? Do I want to spend time doing those things? Of course. Would I rather choose that? Often I would rather choose that than choose the hard things of our life, or even the mundane things of life that, you know, don't like spark joy, as they say. But, you know, when we are walking in those hard things, we're choosing something other than ourselves. And that's kind of like what I was trying to write about in the book about idolatry, primarily this idolatry of self that we have, in order to chase after our own comfort, our own worship, really, rather than sacrificing and worshiping the Lord. I think it's, you know, it's much easier to choose that, but once we recognize the way of Jesus is not choosing comfort, and so that's not the way of his followers either. You know, we find more joy in the sacrifice, really, than we do in the comfort.
One of the things that my wife has said a lot of very wise things to me over the years.
A lot of it's usually just no.
She has said a lot of no's. There's been a lot of don't do that. That's dumb. You know, I wish she said no before I got my nipples pierced in seminary. That would have, instead, she was like, oh, that looks cool on that rock star. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'll be right back. And then I came back and she's like, oh, yeah, okay. Well, you're not a rock star. You're a chubby seminary student. It's not the same thing, bro. Anyway, one of the things that she said, and it really stuck with me, it had a huge impact on me. She was talking to women at the time when she was teaching or lecturing somewhere or preaching. And she said, you know, it was like Ephesians 2:10. We are created in Christ Jesus to basically walk in the good works that God prepared beforehand. And she said, you know, we tend to think of good works as like reading the Bible or praying or worshiping or maybe forgiving somebody who sinned against us. But she said, my good works are laundry right now in this season. That's one of my good works. Like my good works are, you know, making sure that the kids are ready for school because my husband has to be gone at that point of the day. And so it wasn't like this is what every woman needs to do. She was saying, listen, look at the things that God has given you to do in the ordinary, to use your words. And those are your good works. Like it's the everyday responsibilities that God has given you that when you do those in faith, you bring glory to God. And that's a lot of what you're talking about here.
Yeah.
And so,
I mean, we all have those things. No, sorry. I was just going to, that's wonderful what she said. Cause it's true. Like we all have things, whether it's laundry or the dishes or whatever it may be. We don't have to find something to do. We all have something to do. And so it's just redeeming that whatever it is, fill in the blank in order, you know, to do that good work.
So when we're looking then, you know, we've been talking about kind of like worship and the act of worship and the sacrifice. Let's move into discipleship then, because, you know, it's the disciple that
Programs.
What?
Programs.
We're getting
classes.
Classes? We need more discipleship classes.
I like
and programs?
classes. Classes are good.
Are you saying glasses or classes?
Both.
I
like classes with glasses.
Classes with glass.
Yeah.
I want a glass with class.
Oh, that you and I don't have any class.
No,
like that kind of class.
So when we're talking about discipleship, let's try to narrow this down then. What is the aim of discipleship fundamentally?
Yeah. So, I mean, our aim, whether it be in a class or whether it be, you know, with people in your life is, you know, what I've found to be, I could give like a biblical answer, and of course that's never going to be wrong. But what I've found to be true in my life is just coming alongside people and not just encouraging them, not just teaching them, but being with them in a way that helps them to grow in their knowledge of the Lord, whether that be scripture, whether that be applying it to their lives, and to go on to make more disciples. So, like, how am I discipling people around me? Is it that I'm just reading a book with them or teaching them a certain portion of scripture, like, hey, here's what this means? That's not always helpful. I think, sometimes it can be, but more so it's opening up and being available, opening our lives and being available to see, here's maybe some things that I've learned and I've done right. Here's some things I'm still learning in and I've failed at. And I'm available to you in all of that so that we can walk alongside one another and seek Jesus better together. I love, like, you guys are mentioning classes and glasses. I like both of those. I love classes. Like, we have a women's Bible study class at our church that I am just every meeting, I'm so excited because I love it so much.
I know, because you wouldn't record with us because you had your precious class that you had to do.
I know. I'm sorry. I had to blow you guys off for the class.
You keep prioritizing your local church over us. I don't understand.
How dare I?
How dare you?
I know. Shout out to the ladies in my class. I love y'all. But no, it's so important to have those avenues. And in the book, I made that distinction between organized discipleship and ordinary discipleship, and how, like, the goal is the same thing, is that we're growing and we're learning and we're able to walk a little further, you could say, and do that together. But it's done in different ways, and it's kind of the same concept as the worship. So, like, worship, where we're in church, we're worshiping corporately together, and then how does it look in our lives? It's the same with discipleship. So we can have a class and we can learn together and have a wonderful time and do our homework and all those things. But what does that look like in our lives with the people who are present in our lives as well? So how do we disciple those who are not coming to our Bible study class? How do you disciple your kids? How do you disciple your neighbors? Whoever it is that's in your life. What does discipleship look like for them? And so, talking about the ordinary ways we disciple people, it's more about opening our lives, being available, and being not just an example of, like, here's how to do things, but maybe here's how to fail and get back up and repent and learn and move on. I think that's just as important as trying to teach someone, well, like, maybe this is the best way to do it.
And what I love is, as you're talking about discipleship and how you broke it down, right, into almost this formal or informal or formal and ordinary, and how it takes intentionality to do it. It takes sacrifice and transparency to do it. And so it does take coming alongside people and opening up your life with them. I mean, the phrase is, I think we all, well, I shouldn't say we all, Joey really hates it.
I hate everything.
We're doing life together,
I barely do my own life.
Why am I going to do
How am I
going
to do it together with somebody else? I don't even know.
But I mean, that's there is an aspect to it, right? Of, like, we are discipling. We're being discipled together.
Proximity, right? Proximity is a necessary part of discipleship. You actually have to be in one another's lives.
Which is why, as you're hitting here, like the local assembly, and like why it's important for you to not neglect your time with the ladies there, because that's important. Yes. And that's why, the people that God has put around us, I mean, is really crucial, and we've kind of lost sight in the church because we look towards these other people like a MacArthur or a Driscoll. Or,
Can you pick a good one?
No, I'm picking all the ones Piper. A Chandler.
Oh, okay. Chandler's all right.
All right,
be like Sproul.
Okay,
he dead.
Okay, Keller, right? Dever.
Dever's good. I like Dever.
All right, Lawson.
Yeah, Lawson's good.
There you go. All right. We look in a Thorn, like we look towards, and these are the ones that, oftentimes people try to prioritize them.
Right.
Rather than, because it's easy. It's easy
because you think that, they're the experts. They're going to have the bigger impact in discipleship.
But they don't see what's actually really going on.
Right.
They're not, you could fake whatever you want with them, and you can lie to yourself.
You don't even have to.
You don't even have to.
Because they're not there. Yeah.
But in the local assembly, with those around you in proximity, it is much more real.
Yeah.
And it's ordinary.
Hey, I wanted to ask you something, Olivia.
Oh.
And I'm not calling you a blasphemer.
Oh, here we go. Oh, I know where we're going.
But of course you do.
Yeah.
Because she said this thing.
Yeah, you said
There
a
we
thing.
go.
You said Jesus was terrible, and in your book. And
No.
you did, and I just wanted to give you an opportunity to explain why you think Jesus is so terrible.
No, that's not fair. That's,
That's what she said.
That's a misquote.
I'm not misquoting.
You're misquoting.
I am quoting.
No.
She did say use the word terrible. That's not misquoting.
No. She said that Jesus was a terrible influencer.
They're terrible.
No, terrible
Terrible.
influencer.
Terrible.
Terrible.
Thank you for sticking up for me.
Terrible.
Terrible.
Terrible. No, I actually really like this, and I like it. I don't like it because it's provocative, though it is. I like it because it's true. You said Jesus was a terrible influencer. Now, you put this in the context of discipleship, and then you explained what influencers are. Could you unpack that a little bit? Why was Jesus a terrible influencer by today's standards?
Yeah. So Jesus was a terrible influencer. In defining influence or influencer, I think what most of us, in our culture today could apply to being an influencer is someone who has this grand scale influence. So social media, for example, they have hundreds of thousands of followers, and they're producing content every day, every few hours to put out there and be consumed. And they have this grand scale of people who are either listening to them, following them, not just on social media, but I think that's a really easy thing for us to think of, because most of us have experience with interacting with people who are a quote unquote influencer. It's it's an industry. It's a huge industry. And I think there are many people who may use that for good, or who do use that for good. I'm not saying there are people who I don't know who are influencers who I interact with their content and I enjoy it. But I think that's a really, it's become this idea that we have to have that, or we have to, in order to have any sort of influence on people, that I have to have 200,000 people following me on Instagram and watching my Instagram stories and clicking this link to buy this product, when really that's a shallow influence.
Right.
And when I applied that to Jesus, so saying that Jesus was a terrible influencer, if you look at and read in the Gospels of just the life and ministry of Jesus, he often, his most sincere and delicate moments were reserved for a small group of people.
Yeah.
And even some of his a lot of his teachings, he would teach in parables, and many wouldn't understand. And he was asked, aren't you going to explain it to them? And Jesus says, I'll explain it to you, in talking to his disciples. And so he explains it to a small group of people. And I think that's really important for us to remember, that of course Jesus is and has a grand scale of influence. But when you look at his life and his ministry, that wasn't exactly the goal. He engaged with crowds and served all people in a way in his ministry, and healing people and those things. But that was never the goal in what he was doing. I guess I hope that I'm explaining that in an appropriate way.
Totally. Jesus, listen, do you want to know how bad of an influencer Jesus was? In John 6, he starts dropping, Jesus starts dropping really hard truths, you can't come to me. You can't unless the Father draws you. And then it says, and pretty much most of his disciples stopped following him. They were like, we can't handle this. He was not a good influencer by today's standards. I think you're absolutely right, but you were making the point that this should help us to understand how we think about our influence.
Yeah. So, when I think about my influence, is it most valuable for me to try to reach random people that I don't know on the internet? Or is it more valuable for me to reach the people in my life? So, my kids, my friends, the, brothers and sisters in my local church, the people who I actually have a direct influence on and can be part of their lives. Is it more valuable for me to spend my time and energy and focus on them, or would it be more valuable for me to spend my time and focus and energy on people who I don't know, or who don't have anything to do with my life. They can't see my fruit. They don't know if what I'm saying is, really true of my life or not. But the people who come to my small group, they are going to know if what I'm saying is true of my life or not, because they see the way that I put my kids to bed.
Right.
Or they see the way that, I have dirty dishes in my sink every time they come over, and they don't care.
Gross.
I know.
Joey,
Listen, Southern Seminary used to have a class on how women need to keep their homes super tidy and be ready at a moment's notice to have a perfect looking home. I was there.
That sounds like a great class. Sure, you can hear my enthusiasm.
Yeah.
I mean, good for them.
It's important to be available, but it's also important to have a spotless kitchen. That's what I think that was the message at the time.
That was the message.
That was the message at the time.
So, Olivia, where can people get your book?
So it's on Amazon. You can find it on Amazon. Mm-hmm.
It's a real book.
Joey's book's not even on Amazon.
I can't even get half of my books on Amazon, so I don't know.
Well.
But let me say, I love the size. Size of the book is nice.
Thank you.
Because people, like some of the best books I've read, not just my own, are small books, like The Golden Booklet of the Christian Life by Calvin, pulled out of the Institutes, Words to Winners of Soul, The Art of Man Fishing by Thomas Boston. Some of the greatest books are small and readable, but packed with truth. Yours is one of those books. So
thank you. That was very intentional.
They can get it on Amazon. Amazon's good. All right, cool. And how do people follow you on social media? Do you want people to follow you on social media? I know you're anti-platform.
I just blasted influencers. So, no, yeah, you can find me on Twitter, Olivia P. Meade, or Instagram, Olivia P. Meade.
Awesome. Thanks so much. We really appreciate it. Your book is real. It's good. It's worth reading. It's more real than Jimmy's extensions, that's for sure. And I'm grateful for it. And I'm going to be passing it on to my wife. And we'll be encouraging our ladies to be reading this book as well.
Thank you so much.
Well, we'd love to hear your thoughts. You can follow us online on Instagram and Twitter @DocandDevo, or on Facebook /Doctrine and Devotion. You can head to the website, drdevotion.com. There you can contact us. You can sign up for the email blast or hit up the store, jofostore.com, and grab some gear. We got that fresh pod every Monday and Thursday. We got blog posts and video content over at the website. And we've got that all-access exclusive content. We got Banter Truth on Tuesdays and Weekday Wisdom Monday through Friday. Head on over to doctrineanddevotion.com /all-access to sign up today. Later.